Welcome to Getting to the Truth in This Art. I am your host, Rob Lee, and today's guest is noted content creator, Rickie Jacobs. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, brother. Thank you. I'm happy to be here. I'm humbled to be here. It's not enough of it, so, thank you.
Yeah, I see you right now. You're in your, like, in some ways, I'll say this, you're in your creative space right now for some of the content you're putting out there.
I'm in my office and I'm drinking.
I mean, I'm envious. I just had a coffee or what have you because I was dragging, and now I feel like I'm be turning the scotch in a little bit. But so I came across you just like, how Instagram will do that thing of you might know this person, you might know that person. Mm-hmm. And I started just like following people and I was like, oh, who's got good content out here? And I just started going through your page and I'm like, okay, that's dope. That's cool. Let's see, what's more. Let me slide into the DMs. Let me hit this dude up and see what's good. So I see that you're doing good work. You're doing like really interesting stuff since like COVID's been happening. But if you will, describe your work to the audience that may be uninitiated.
Okay, so I started really taking more of an initiative to create more, to tap into, just kind of finding my place, in the art realm, so you will. Yeah. I always been a creator, but as you just kind of mentioned, COVID, since the breakout, I think that put a lot of people in a space where we were just kind of more in tune with our like interior, so to speak, to the point where it's like we were digging and pulling from ourselves more than ever. And I'm only speaking from, a creative point of view. Now, yeah. I'm sure like other people who don't really have hobbies have been going crazy and just trying to figure out what they can do with their time. But, naturally, as like we have these things that we like to do. So I have a podcast called Liquor with Friends where like yourself, the plan and the goal was to interview different creatives that are Baltimore based and Baltimore natives as well, born and raised. And I started that podcast. A lot of people don't know. I started a podcast in 2019, but the idea was different. The name was self-explanatory as far as, it was initially was supposed to be a podcast with me and my friends. And we were going to drink and just talk about whatever we wanted to talk about. And, shout out to my brother Sheldon, and I'm not throwing him under the bus, but we shot the first episode at his crib. And I felt like this nigga was too high to engage. So like, during the recording, I felt good because I was drinking. So sometimes when I'm drinking, I'm not the productivity level is as far as like me being intuitive in the moment. I just didn't know that the episode was shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Until I went back home, listened to it, and was like, yo, we aren't talking about a damn thing. Right. So I put that on hold, but the concept, it was a dope idea. You know what I mean? Like the name, the way I was branding it and all of that. So I just, a lot of personal things was happening anyway. So I took a break. Here comes 2020. And this is actually before the pandemic. I was talking about redoing, rebranding the podcast and everything, but I just didn't know where to record. You know what I mean? You know the podcasting journalist woes, like you gotta find a space where you want to record at, and all those things, all those intangibles that makes a decent podcast.
Yeah, it could be one of those things where, like, I said it before we got started doing it as long as I have. over the years, you just start accruing it and you figure out what works for you. So I have like, in my opinion, I have like maybe 3-4 different setups. I have low tier mobile, I have the home studio, and I have a more of a combination between the two. I had a birthday last week. My girl got me this really dope mixer, and I was like, all right. And it's like the mixer that you can take phone calls and everything, and it's mobile. And I'm like, yo, this is crazy. This is a whole new world. And I think having that background, not to go away from the point you're getting at, but to have that background in it, you can flex. But you're right. When the COVID hit, the space that I was recording this particular podcast, and it was a comedy club, and that thing is closed. So, because, you want to meet people, you want to be face to face, and you get a different reaction when you're face to face with somebody. Certain things translate a little different. Zoom has gotten better over the time, but at the very beginning, it was ass.
Yeah, you probably paying for the premium too, right? Because you got the nice background.
Oh, I put that in. I got a green screen, my guy.
Yeah, see,
I'm trying to do it big. This is for the guests.
Shit, that's dope. Yeah, no, absolutely. And but I was tweeting. I want to revamp the podcast.
Yeah.
So shout out to my guy FMG Dez, who is who I consider like really a staple in like Baltimore hip hop on the street side. And he was like, let me know, I got a lot of stuff to talk about. And to me, I couldn't refuse that because like I'm really in tune into the scene. I don't know everyone, but I know the guys to know, Yeah. So I felt like, yeah, that would be a dope interview. So I'm just like, you know what? Fuck all the equipment, even though I know how to set it up. I'm just going to go out on a whim and do a guerrilla style. Hey, meet me at my elementary school that I used to go to. So we met up at an elementary school I used to attend. And I pulled up. He came through, you know what I'm saying? We kicked the shits, and I'm talking about like, I just felt like it was a dope interview because it's like, I swear I only asked like 4 or 5 questions. and the interview was like 2 hours from 4 or 5 questions. And then the engagement was just so organic and authentic. And it's like, you can't repeat that. You can't force it. It was just right. So when I put it out, I put out a promo video of a clip of him speaking, and it was just like the way aesthetically, like the way I aesthetically put it together, like people really appreciated it and was really like excited to watch it. So, that kind of gave me more confidence to keep putting out the more content. So
totally.
Fast forward to where we are at, like with the Carcerts. I interviewed an artist by the name of Al Rogers Jr., who is not just a dope artist, but a dope individual. So I definitely thought like he had a lot of stuff to say. I've never seen anybody interview him where he was like more so like vocal. So I was like, all right. And that's always my intent. Like I want to speak to people that people never heard speak. So we did the before we did the interview, I'm getting my I record my interviews on my phone. But I was like, you know what? I'm still a new podcaster. People that support me are the people that just like me personally, that's just gonna support my peers, my family, and my friends. But to add some like extra juice to the podcast, it would be dope if every artist that I interview, I have them perform a song at the end. Almost kind of like the late night show, you know what I mean? Like I kind of I kind of implemented like that structure and applied it to the podcast. Because there ain't no podcast going to have a guest perform. And I'm already podcasting from my car.
like what's that? Like Rhapsody the Basement used to have that kind of element where you'd have someone on, but you're looking for them to get in the booth. You're looking for them to have something perform in some context. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right. That is a thing that often gets missed, because my thing, especially in doing this podcast, is you're working with creatives and so on. And sometimes, like, you know, if you're a visual artist, yeah, you can debut something. Like, you know, recently I worked with one of the artists I had on before. He did a portrait of Brandon Scott, and he debuted it using my platform. And I was like, wow, I was just that's really dope. And just to say that, when someone, if you're working with people who are musically inclined, for them to show off what that talent is, just for the sake of the culture, just showing it off, that's what you like. And that often gets missed because people almost don't do it for that anymore. They don't do it for, I'm just showing you what I do. I'm just showing off right now.
Yeah, no, for sure. No, I agree. And the thing is, like, it's so many pieces, like, to like what I want out of this, right? So honestly, I like making history. I like making moments. So I just wanna put something out that 5, 10 years, 20 years from now, people can say like, yo, it was never done here, and this is the best show on earth right now. Or during the pandemic era, this is what we were entertained by, like, aside from the virtual shows that the artists do, you know, on their own respectively. Like, this is something that you can't mention the pandemic era without in the city without mentioning Carcerts, you know what I mean? And from that moment, like, before it even had a name, it just went crazy. So I was like, just like how when I started the Liquor with Friends over, the responses from that was so good that it boosted my confidence again. So it was like a double confidence booster. And I was like, you know what? I actually put the podcast to the side a second time because Carcerts was just doing dope. So good. It was just becoming a dope platform, and the content was dope. But in between, I would throw out some podcasts like that. You know, like when guys say they on their 100 episode, I want to get to that point. Like, because I know that's a crazy accomplishment, and you on season 3, so I can only imagine how many episodes I can only imagine how many episodes you've recorded. You know what I'm saying? I really want to get to
Put it this way. With Mastermind Teams Robcast, that's the one I've been doing for the 12 years. That's at episode 317. Took a month off, and we're going to come back. Our 12th anniversary is February. So it's just like we're coming back with those new episodes starting in February. This is like episode 60 of this podcast. I'm doing 20, 25 per season for this podcast. But there have been a bunch of podcasts that just you couldn't maintain, couldn't continue, or you had to rebrand. So, like, I think all in all, you know, in the duration of me doing it for this amount of time, it's probably 700 podcasts that I've done, just putting out stuff. And a lot of them, I did all of the editing, the whole concept, and, you know, working with my folks and working with my friends and my people and all, but for the most part, coming up with the concept and all of that stuff. So yeah, it makes a lot of sense that you have to shift sometimes. You have to, like, all right, it's the thing. I don't know if you follow football or anything along those lines, but it's almost that thing where you have like running back by committee, and you're like, I got to roll with the hot hand right now, and I can't do all three. So it's like one takes the shift. So I think that's what you were running into, where you were getting feedback that said you should be putting your attention towards this one.
Yeah.
And then the other one has to take a little bit of a back seat. And it's not a matter of it's done. You're just coming back to it to see how it's going to work and how you can balance the two, or which one should get the most attention. Because that's what happens sometimes.
You're articulate, bro. Because in so many like ways, I probably would not be able to like say it like that. I'm glad, like, you know, your perspective and the way you know interpret things are, you know, the way they are, because a lot of people just need two different like two different like perspectives on like why I'm more so doing this and less of that. You know what I mean? And again, I'm not stopping, but Carcerts is working. Like, it's crazy, bro. Like, I'm like, sometimes when I do it, I be like, yo, nobody thought of this.
Yeah, so here's the funny thing. This is the question because I got this question I wrote down because I thought about it. Yes. So with Carcerts, would this be fair? Would this be fair to say this is this is the dope side of what people think they're getting with carpool karaoke?
It's the dopest side because all right, look, it's only been a handful of people who do make those comparisons.
Yeah. But
the difference is like sometimes they'll have the artists on there and they may perform their songs, maybe. But it's every sense of what it is. It's like they'll have guests on there, but they'll have guests singing along to artist songs. Like he won't have artists on here on that platform like that. He'll have like he had Michelle Obama on there. And then he had Odell on there. Like, she's an artist, but he had Adele rapping Nicki Minaj songs. You know what I mean?
You know what it reminds me of though? Yeah. It reminds me of that segment from Chappelle's show when it was Chappelle and Mos Def.
Bro, we about to be best friends. Cause let me tell you, that's who I literally Carcerts, that whole idea. And the infrastructure of Carcerts, Chappelle show, 1,000%. Yeah. So by you saying that, and you the first person that said that besides me, cause like I tell my girl, like, Dave Chappelle is my hero. Like, he literally changed my life every time he does something. Like, he's somebody that is like an indirect mentor to me, or not mentor, but an idol, so to speak. Because what he did with the Chappelle show was fucking different. That shit. Can I cuss on you?
No, you good.
It was different. Like, nobody was doing that shit. Of course, we had sketch comedy. We always had sketch comedy. We always had sketch comedy that might have a musical guest. But the musical guest that he was putting on was synonymous to what Kanye's agenda was when he became mainstream, and he was putting artists like Mos Def on the same song with artists like Freeway. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like, mixing and intertwining two different worlds, so the two different worlds can kind of get a little familiar and have a better understanding. And even though the language is different, they know they share the same common thing, and that's just creating. I'm said that shit, bro. Nobody said that shit to me, man.
So this is the thing, though. So, and I want to get your thoughts on this. So, do you feel that it's important to have that crossover appeal, that you can hit multiple audiences, multiple pockets, in that same way of bringing the backpackers, and that way of like, let me bring Mos Def with a Freeway, or let me bring these artsy kids with these dudes who got that street edge, but they're artistically inclined? Because a lot of people can't do both. Do you think that that's what you may be aiming to do as well, or is it something that you shy away from?
I think it's happening right now. Like, if you I'm kind of on the inside of like, so what I've noticed when I post certain artists, because artists follow me. So I'll post a certain artist that artist might not even be familiar with. And just off of like whatever their style is, it may appeal to this particular artist. And I've gotten people to hit me about inquiring, and I'm talking about artists like, yo, that artist you had on Carcerts, I'm trying to work with them. You know what I mean? So it's kind of like, as small as the community is, I'm kind of minimizing the community even. Well, expanding it, but bringing people more so close knit together where they're a little bit more familiar. And
making it more accessible.
Making it more accessible, because I guarantee you, like, matter of fact, a couple of artists I had on there. One of my homeboys who was an artist himself was like, he wants to work with X, Y, and Z. You know what I mean? Just off the strength that they were on Carcerts and they just liked what they heard. You know what I mean? So I guarantee you, it's a lot of artists who follow me that are reaching out to the artists that I put on there. So that's always been a goal. And if you listen to, you know, because on the Carcert page, I don't even have half as many of the Carcerts that I have on there that I do on my personal page. So I'm kind of building it from my personal page. Then once I feel like it's getting to a more safer, I have enough followers on the Carcert page, then I'll start to slow down posting on my personal page. But that's just what I had to do to build that brand. It's like, okay, this is my brand and it's coming from me. So I'm gonna post it on my personal account. So you know, if you know, a lot of people, I tell them like, just take a gander and see the different artists that I have on there, and the platform has range because the guests I have on there are different. I may have a guy that is more melodic, and I have a guy on there that's like a MC's MC, like a lyricist. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah.
So I'll make this thing, and I have like a couple more questions to ask you before I give you an opportunity to plug even more. Let's get into it. But so I'll say what I notice when you have certain guests on, especially some of the guests that I've had on in this season. I mean, I started off with the founder of a museum. I started off with Rebecca Hofberger, founder of the AVAM. That's what I started the season off with. So from there, it was kind of one of those things of, legitimacy. Like having each level, like being able to have a conversation with someone who's just starting out to someone that's running something. I recently did an interview with the co-founder of Blacks and Wax Museum. And that's the things that I'm trying to do, being able to hit each person, because the thing that I try to pride this podcast on is, are you about Baltimore or not? That's the way that I look at it. And it's a very interesting weeding out process, because there are some people who see it as a clout opportunity, because I looked at this thing as this podcast as is open, is broad. Anybody can come on, but I try to keep it very centered around who's driving facets of the culture, whether it be the entrepreneurial community, whether it be the artist community, and people who are tastemakers. You're in that artist community, you're in that tastemaker community, you're driving it, so it makes sense for you to be on here. But I find that some, not all, but some businesses, they just see it as an opportunity for clout, and you have to be even more restrictive and more refined as to who you associate yourself with when it comes to this sort of thing. Because to your point, people will go through and check and like, oh, you had this person on there, or you had that person. And then somebody gets spicy and you're like, I mean, take that post down real quick, because you have, as you build that brand up, you have more things that, you have to be privy to and aware of. And it brings me to this question.
Okay.
What qualities, maybe three qualities that you look for in a guest that's going to come on Carcerts?
Because I'm a huge fan of art and the way that the art is represented. Guess that's one, and two. And I can elaborate on that. Like,
please do.
Do you care enough that what you're putting out is actually good? And it's really two things. Like, and sometimes it kind of all twinkles down to one thing. Are you good? Because I don't care about clout. I care about character. And it's been a lot of instances where I'll reach out to an artist that I actually want to have, but it's gotten so crazy, where as though the last couple of months I haven't been reaching out to. They'll inquire about it. So I'm just like, okay, you can have 0 followers. I don't care about that. I just want to put out good content, because at the end of the day, this is my brand. and I'm just gonna put out this content and shit. If it gets, I mean, I'm not anybody. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not saying like if I put it out, you're gonna get instant 50 follows.
Right.
But I'm just like, I just want to put out good fucking art. Carcerts is art. Like, that's my art.
That's the thing that gets lost. People don't respect podcasts in a way of, oh, you can just easily do that. There's a fair amount of work, consideration, and an artistic approach that goes into it. And put it this way. The thing that I run into all the time is, and most recently, and I've run into it more and more recently, is, why'd you have that person on? I was like, because I thought they were interesting. Because I have my own equipment and I know what I'm doing here. And like I said before, I can get an interesting conversation out of anyone. And you can tell within the first few minutes of an interview, in my opinion, whether this is going to be worth your time and energy to post and whether it's not. There have been a few that guys that come on there, they're a little too zooted, kind of going back to what you were saying earlier. And it's just like, yo, you're taking 30 seconds to say hello, my guy. Like, can you tighten it up? And other times you have people that are just super nervous. And in all of these interviews I've done, there's only been maybe 3 that I've had to scrap. And one that the guest was like, I was super nervous. Can we redo it? And I'm accommodating because ultimately it's about me putting together these things, but I want to be able to show the artist in their best light within the context of what we're doing. So I try to be more on point of sending them the questions early on, because who wants to feel like they, you got caught up in a gotcha moment, you don't have an answer. It's like, I never thought about that. You don't want that.
You don't want that. But I mean, another way I look at it, like, I get caught in gotcha, I mean, I feel like I've experienced that here, but more so on the flip side of, you have a totally different perspective of the approach. And I just be like, oh, I never thought about it that way. And that makes sense too. If it's beneficial, then yeah, like, it's nothing wrong.
Well, you know how journalism goes, though. They all hit you with, so when you did this, and it's like, I'm not even looking through my history. Like, what are you talking about? How'd you find my web browser history? What's good?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So the other question I had, this is actually I had 2 more. This is the interesting question I had here. So how do you touched on the guest a little bit.
Yeah.
But has there been a way that you're like, you know what? This guest will pair well with cognac. This guest will pair well with vodka. How do you go about that? Because there is a pairing thing, right?
Yeah. So now you're talking about the podcast.
Yeah.
Man, I don't even think into it like that. I just purchase whatever my pockets say to purchase. That's it. Like, that's it.
Look, man, when you have me on, I only drink Japanese whiskey, man. You have me.
And that's a very grown up, like, whiskey. Like,
it is.
It's foreign for one. But there was one episode I bought Henny. And that was a week that my check was looking really hefty. I was like, oh yeah, I can get a bottle of Henny for real. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then it's not a luxury drink, but you can't get Henny every episode.
I mean, expense that one out though. Expense that out.
Yeah. But I remember. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead. You good?
But see, I did that because a guy that I interviewed, I never met him before.
Yeah.
So the best way for me to get him to open up was to give him some Henny.
Yeah. I mean, we used to, me and my brother, we did a show that was similar to the one that you were describing earlier, but we called it Operation Burn One. And pretty much he had his son, and his son would be asleep, and he was like, can we get through this before my son wakes up? Yeah. And the wild thing was, I was drinking Johnny Walker Black every weekend. So I'd go get a bottle of Johnny Walker Black, and he and I would just have the whole situation and just talk about whatever, stream of consciousness style. And it's like, can we get this in before your son wakes up? That was a whole focal point of that podcast. Wow. It was an editing nightmare, but it was very fun. And, sometimes it's like, you just got to sometimes you got to do it for the audience. Sometimes you got to do them for yourself.
Yeah.
So this is the last question I have for you before I give you an opportunity to plug, your socials, plug the website, all that good stuff.
All right.
So this is the Baltimore question, because I'll be remiss if I don't touch on, what Baltimore is and what it means to us and all of that good stuff, because we're all here. I think, if a person's here and they're creating and they have the aspirations and not really being about the city that they're in, then really, what are you doing? So
sure.
Let's say you got a friend coming up from out of town, right? COVID is done. We're safe. We're good.
Yeah.
What are 3 things that they have to do that's that quintessential Baltimore experience? What are 3 things you tell them, like, yo, you got to do this before you leave?
Oh, okay. Shit. Well, first of all, I'm going to take my guys to Chicken Coop on Park Kite. You know what I'm saying? And I'm going to tell them how to get that chicken box. You got to get the, you know what I'm saying? You get a chicken box, salt, pepper, ketchup, or hot sauce if you want that. But
yes.
Get it fried hard. You don't want them to make it like they make it, because, I mean, it ain't bad, but it ain't immaculate. So you got to get motherfuckers a fry. Because a lot of places I don't trust, I tell them to fry it hard. Because if they just make it the standard way, yeah. So that's number 1. Number 2, man, we pride shit, man. Look, the guys my friends out of town, they are actually from New Jersey, and they white boys. So just to make it funner, I'm taking these niggas to the Horseshoe.
Yeah.
And then after they get fucked up at the Horseshoe, we going to the game. Because it's right there.
Yeah, it is. It's just right there.
It's right there. But that's just 2. That's the 2 for 1. So and then the third, shit. Man, let me see. Federal Hill is just too comfortable. It's like home for them, because Jersey is
a little too comfortable. Yeah,
Jersey a
lot of fist pumping.
Yeah, so I would probably, man, listen. All right, just to make it more intimate. All right, like I said, we went to Chicken Coop, got the chicken box fried hard. We went to Horseshoe. They got fucked up. We went to the game, and we gonna get fucked up at game too. You know
as well.
And then I'm just going to take them to one of my homeboys, like, have a game night. Because they going to be the only white boys in that motherfucker. And none of my homies, like, or my cousins be around white people like that or party with them like that, unless they at their employment. That's the only time I interact with white people is when we at work.
I dig it. It's like my man Rickie is bringing together different communities. If anything we've learned today, bringing together different communities, whether it be through a chicken box fried hard or through Carcerts, you're bringing together different communities. So in these final moments, again, I want to thank you for coming on to this podcast. This has been a treat. Feel free, social media, online, where can they find you? Shamelessly plug your things.
Man, all right. I don't believe in shameless plugs, man. That's your shit. You shouldn't feel no shame in plugging your shit. So, as we spoke, you can tune into Carcerts, Carcerts on Instagram, Liquor with Friends on Instagram, Rickie Jacobs. Rickie Jacobs, follow my personal page for real. Rickie Jacobs on Twitter, Instagram. And shit, man. Carcerts.us. That's the website. Some motherfucker got .com, but I'm working on it. I mean, and just watch the Carcerts for real, and just holler at me, send me feedback, man. I'm very personable. I pretty much respond to all my DMs that are normal. You know what I'm saying?
I've got a few weird ones myself.
Bro, don't send me no weird shit, man, because I don't know how to respond to the weird shit. So, yeah, man, like, that's it. Carcerts, Rickie Jacobs, man. Liquor with Friends. And thank you for having me, bro. Yeah.
Totally, man. So, for Rickie Jacobs, Carcerts, I'm Rob Lee saying that that's art in and around Baltimore. You just got to look for it.